welcome to the ASP video training series. Today we're going to be talking about vinyl plank flooring. Vinyl plank flooring is similar to laminate in that it comes in planks and that it's held down with baseboard around the room. It's different from laminate in that it's made of vinyl, which makes it more water resilient. And also, instead of locking together with tongue and groove technology, it actually sticks together. Like laminate, this floor needs to acclimate in a room for 48 hours before installing. It can be installed directly over new subfloor or existing subfloor. It is important to take special care to sweep and vacuum all the dust you can out of the room. It's actually best practice to go ahead and prime the floor to lock down any small dust particles. Any gaps in the subfloor need to be filled with floor leveler, as well as any uneven spots in the subfloor. All this needs to be smoothed out with the compound, and then once it's dried, any ridges need to be scraped off with a knife. This will ensure a smooth, flat surface for the floor to lay on. After we've got the floor clean, we want to spend time planning out our floor project. We want to measure the width and length of the room to determine what size planks we'll need. We want to measure the width of the room to determine how wide our last plank will be. We're going to start with a 6-inch piece and end with a 5-inch piece, which will be perfectly acceptable. We then want to measure the length of the room to make sure that we're not going to end with a plank that's 12 inches or less. After we've got our floors cleaned, our project planned, and all our door casings cut, we can then install some spacers on the baseboard. For this, we're using cut-up paint stirrers and masking tape. What this does is allow for any movement in the subfloor. We begin installing flooring by placing the first plank against the spacers with the adhesive tab out. When securing 2 planks together, you should angle the second plank onto the corresponding edge. Starting at one end of the plank, use one hand to secure the piece in place and the other hand to roll the edge into place for a tight fit. You can push the plank slightly against the adjoining plank to create a tight seam, if necessary, after the connection has been made. As you're working, and if you've got a seam that doesn't end up as tight as you'd like, you can rework it by simply pulling those planks apart very gently and reinstalling that plank. You've got about 10 to 15 minutes of open time with this flooring, meaning you've got about 10 to 15 minutes before the floor really sticks together. Before finishing the first row, you can begin starting on the second row. This will not only help keep that first row straight, but it'll also get more people involved. It's important to remember to stagger the seams by at least 12 inches and also to make sure you don't end with a piece that's 12 inches or less. When cutting the end pieces, instead of measuring, you can turn a full piece 180 degrees so the tabs are facing each other and mark where the piece and the previous piece overlap. You can cut here, scoring with a utility knife and snapping. It doesn't take much pressure to score the planks. Score away from you when possible. Continue laying planks and ensuring each plank is tight to the next. Any irregular objects or door jambs you have to trim around can be marked out by measuring, scribing, or even tracing it on paper. And then you can make this cut with tin snips. If you mess up on an irregular cut, remove the piece and try again. The longer the tabs are allowed to touch, the stickier they become. After you lay a couple rows, it's a really good idea to sweep and vacuum again, just to ensure that no dust has gotten into the room. It's a really good idea to have somebody specifically in charge of quality control, making sure the seams are tight before moving on to the next row. It's really easy to fix a mistake immediately, but it's very difficult to fix a mistake in the middle of the floor. When measuring for the last row, it's a good idea to measure both sides of the plank to be cut, because not all rooms are square. To make this cut, you can score and snap or use tin snips. Once the floor has been rolled or tapped, we can put on the finishing touches. Because it is a floating floor, we have to lock it down on the edges with trim. In this room, we left the baseboard and we'll be adding base shoe to hold the floor down. We install our trim using trim screws. After our trim is installed, we caulk the seams between the base shoe and the baseboard and all of the screw penetrations. In addition to trim, we must also install a floor transition in the doorway to this room. Because this floor steps up about an inch from the hallway, we were able to use a stair tread threshold to protect this edge of the floor. You will need to select a threshold based on the needs of your room. You can also run the flooring through the doorway into the next room if feasible and desired. After we have our trim and thresholds installed, we can give the floor a final sweep and start bringing things back in. A couple things to keep in mind when installing this product. It's important to keep those seams tight, have a quality control person making sure those seams are tight, and to have a good time with it. Get the whole group involved and start flooring. We hope this video has been helpful to you. If you need some more information, check out our construction manual at asphome.org.